Maybe Christians can watch Wicked. What up, everybody? It's your boy Kentari, and I'm back again for another episode of Christ and Comic Books. And today we are going to be talking about the new movie release, but has always been played as a Broadway special, the movie Wicked. Now, here's the thing about this movie. First of all, let me just preface that in this video, we're actually not going to be looking at it from a Christian perspective. We're actually going to be looking at this, firstly, just the overall review of the movie itself. And I'll do a separate video actually giving the Christian point of view and my feelings about that from that standpoint. And honestly, I don't think this is going to be the video that you guys might be expecting.
I start slow. That's okay.
Now, the first thing I'll definitely say about the movie is that overall, it's simply good. That's because I've never actually watched the Broadway plays. I've never read the book itself. So I'm being all introduced to everything that's taking place here. I'm new to the whole thing. And a lot of people will tell you, for the people that, have watched it, they'll say, you're going to get hooked. If you watch it, you're going to get hooked. I'm not hooked. I'm just going to be honest with you. It's a good movie. It's a good movie that makes me look forward to what else is probably going to come from this movie. But other than that, it's not something that has me jumping out of my skin to watch over and over and over again. And that's not to bash on the movie in me saying that. So let's actually get into, what I did not like about the movie, but what I did like about the movie. The first thing I'll definitely say is that as the movie started out, I was actually extremely uninterested. Like, nothing was happening that was literally captivating me and capturing my attention. I wasn't drawn in so heavily. There were two specific things that took place in this movie that did not need to be there. Not at all. Yep. This movie could have thrived without those two specific instances being made in this movie. And I say that by me having I guess you could say, a nuanced perspective on this. I see how much I can't stand it being there, but then I also see it having a whole lot of significance that the people who have a particular mindset that like this movie wouldn't like this point of view I'm going to be making later on once we get to the good side. So these two things being this. Firstly, you have where Galinda, I want to make sure I say her name right, Galinda, she is, of course, just appeared at the school, and then Elphaba has shown up as well. And Elphaba is being, everyone's freaking out, her green skin, la-di-da-di-da. And she already has her own set-up defense statement made for when people approach her in this situation. She knows what kind of questions they'll ask, she knows how they're going to look at her, all these things, so she's prepared to respond. And so in this moment, everyone's trying to play it off like, no, we're not freaked out. No, it's not this, it's not that. And Galinda has her minion friends. And in this case, her minion friends is one Asian gentleman who presents as a homosexual character, while the other one is a heavyset white lady. That is also another one of her minions, gets her bag, does what she says, carries her if she needs them to, praises her about everything that she does. And so as they're walking away, the homosexual character ends up saying, well, we don't see color. And I had to pause for, I was like, whoa. Did they slip in a conservative talking point and racial issues from a more homosexual presenting character? That's pretty odd. Why did you have to put that statement in there? That statement had no business being in this movie. Now, they also went and did it again in a separate scene where, as an underlying premise within this movie, especially for those that have already seen it, you know what I'm talking about, the animals are able to talk, they're intellectual, and they have a knowledge about the history of the way that the world used to be. And so one of the teachers was giving this history that's actually forbidden from being taught in the school. And so one of the things that ends up being said by Galinda is this. She says, why don't you just teach us history? Why are we so hung up on the past? And it's that statement of hung up on the past, which is another conservative talking point when it comes to there being that division between, I guess you could say black liberals and white conservatives. It's like, why are you hung up on constantly needing to talk about slavery over and over and over again? Why are you focused on these points? And they brought these two things in. I'm like, why was this here? The movie's doing great of conveying those underlying messages without y'all having to make this unnecessary statement, and especially hinting at very political topics. Yes, some people will tell you it's not, but I'm gonna tell you right now it is. the movie Wicked has, whether if it wasn't before in the plays and in the books, it is now with this movie. It's gone political. There's no way around it. There's no way of beating around the bush. And that's something that I don't know how to feel about that, because it does conflict with the reasons why I do like this movie. But before I get into that, there was something else that I also didn't like from the movie. I didn't like it because I didn't feel it, not because it was bad, if that makes sense. So the songs are being played and they're doing their dance numbers and all of this, and I wasn't, I guess you could say, involved. Like, I didn't know what was being said. I didn't know what the lyrics were actually communicating, all of this. Like, it was just a bunch of dancing, chanting, and there was a lot of motion, but no message. And so I wasn't really there for what the songs were doing for majority of the movie. Outside of the dance number and the song that they were doing in the library, they built that up really well. They communicated that very well. So I was in it as that was taking place. So that one was cool. But other than that, all of the other songs really didn't get me, other than Defying Gravity. Like, I'm not kidding with you guys. At first, I wasn't interested in Wicked. But then all of a sudden I stumbled upon the Defying Gravity. Never heard the song like that. But I then heard it then, and I was in it. I was like, wait a minute. Whoa, this song's good. Whoa, what is this song? I was drawn in. I was like, this is so powerful. Like, my initial response literally was, is this a Christian song? Like, I thought it was a Christian song. Like, something about it was very administered to my heart, if that makes sense. So that was one of the other things too that really shocked me about the movie, was like, all of these other songs don't really mean much, but it's that song hits. And so I love that. I love that song, but all the other songs, I just wasn't in it. I was just like, another song.
2 hours later.
Okay, there's 3 songs total. Popular, the library song, with Fierro leading everybody into a rebellion and going out into a nightclub. But just those 2 songs, and Defying Gravity were the only real good songs in there. Everything else is just meh. They even, this might be cold of me to say, they even had the school, the headmaster lady, she was singing, as she had a moment where she sang. Now here's my thing, I could definitely be wrong, because I understand that at least with that in High School Musical with Zac Efron, he didn't sing his part. There was someone else that was singing the parts for Zac Efron. Okay, cool, but at least someone else came in to sing. But then they had, I think her name was Michelle Yeoh. They had her playing this headmaster lady, and she had this small instance where she sang. But it was like evident she couldn't sing, and I lost interest. I pulled back mentally. I was like, ugh, like that was my literal, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, that was my reaction. It was just like, ugh. And I already didn't trust her. I'm just gonna put that out there. I already didn't trust her. I wrestled with this. I didn't hate this, because again, I don't know a lot about Wicked. So I'm seeing that Cynthia is playing the role of Elphaba. And the thing about her playing this green person, where she's being discriminated against and people don't like her because of her skin, and she's this daughter not born out of wedlock, but born through adultery. You have all of that taking place, and she's being ridiculed and laughed at and all of this stuff. And I'm like, they made a black person be the green person that's discriminated against because of their skin color, adding on to the power and what she's capable of. She's being discriminated against. They immediately were making this association of race to the experience of Elphaba, where my initial understanding was that the Wicked Witch 1 and Wizard of Oz was played by a white lady, and then 2, when they did the first Wicked Broadway play, it was played by a white lady, the same lady that voices and sings for Elsa. And so I'm like, there's a lot of connection between a black person and her role. Now, finding out that several other white ladies, and as well as a couple of other black ladies, have already played the role of Elphaba as well, I kind of pulled back on and being offended in that regard. Like, why do they keep doing this narrative? I pulled back on that because, again, I didn't know. And so I've had a mixed feeling. And what made it worse was, like, you're gonna have a black woman play the green character that's being discriminated against for her skin, and then on top of that, you're gonna have her have a soft side for the monkeys. And then we know that the Wicked Witch of the West has flying monkeys that serve her. I'm like, y'all, are y'all trying to say something? Like, that threw me off. We already got people trying to say Piccolo being green is a brother. He's not. I don't care what nobody say. The Namekians are not black. But so many people want to believe that the Namekians are black. I say no. And then we're going to go add this as an icing on the cake with her, with Elphaba. I'm like, I can't believe y'all are doing this. But that's just my personal reaction. Even though they did do that, it really was just why'd they make her black? Like, that's it. Wasn't mad, didn't hate the movie because of it. It was interesting. This brings me into the things I liked about the movie. There's a very common storyline flow, a common plot that people have gone with in several different forms of writing, where you have the nerdy, quirky, weird, unusual person being brought into the school atmosphere, into the city atmosphere, into the world atmosphere, and they're being looked at as strange and unusual, and no one wants anything to do with them, but they do their best to try and blend in, find out who they are. How can I be true to myself? Do I need to sacrifice who I am to blend in with everybody else, or do I need to be true to who I am? And majority of the times that turns out to work in their favor. But if you know what's happened in Wizard of Oz, and you know that in Wicked they're portraying as Elphaba, the Wicked Witch of the West, being that one to have gone through that experience in her past, it's just like, oh, we know how this ends. Oh my. And that's why you have so many people that have a soft spot for Elphaba. My fellow Christians, my Christian brothers and sisters, calm down.
What do you mean by that?
We're going to do the Christian perspective in another video, so breathe for a minute. But that narrative is actually some of my favorite story writings that I like, is singing that and seeing that they're bringing that, bully the nerd, and then the nerd overcomes that abuse. And if they bring back, like the dragon fighting, where the hero fights against the dragon, if they even start bringing that back, I love it. Get back to, traditional heroism. And getting into this narrative as well is what I found to really be beautiful. I got to sit back and kind of feel nostalgic in the experience, because growing up I was always felt like that nerdy person or that rejected person, even though that wasn't always the case. I felt that way. That's why I related to Max Goof in the Goofy movie so very much. That's why I related to Steve Urkel so very much. Steve Urkel overcame it all every time, bro. Like, I rooted for Steve Urkel, and then to see Elphaba play that role, to see Cynthia play that out in the movie Wicked, was absolutely amazing. It drew me. I loved it. The other thing too, this is going to be the icing on the cake for this. By the way, I honestly wrestled with thinking, like, am I watching Naruto right now?
No! God, please, no!
Because it felt like Naruto was Elphaba, and then Sasuke was Galinda. Like, everybody loved Sasuke, everybody loved Galinda, and then you have Naruto, right? Naruto being hated for what's inside of him. Right? No one wants to be his friend. No one wants anything to do with him. That's just my perspective. But I love the way the movie flowed. I really did. The other thing too, and this is where what I was talking about earlier with them having the homosexual character say that line of, I don't see color, and then they having Galinda say, can we stop harping on the past, incorporating that with these characters. What they actually revealed, and this is what's going to make a lot of leftist liberal people upset if they didn't see it this way. There's a trend happening in a lot of different movies where the things that people who are looking at the movie from the surface, I'm trying to tailor this language correctly. I'm gonna keep it in the political language. The conservatives would hate it, the leftists would love it. But if you're really paying attention, it would probably be the other way around.
For the first time ever,
if not bring us closer together. And it's this. We've seen it in Multiverse of Madness. We've seen it in Agatha All Along. We've seen it in the Barbie movie. And now we're seeing it in this movie, where the movies are actually communicating the truth to you, rather than trying to promote something and make people like something that otherwise wouldn't be good for them. What do I mean by that? Although Galinda and her crew and the people at school are the mean ones and the bullies and the rude people, they've also made those same characters be the homosexual characters, the heavyset characters, the disabled characters, the I guess you could say incel characters. They've made all of these different people fit in with the I guess you could say, the presentation of a liberal. How liberals present is what they fit for, but their language fit more for that of the radical conservative language. And I found that to be interesting, because what this literally shows is, just because you hold to a certain political viewpoint doesn't mean you're not capable of the same wickedness as the other party that you can't seem to stand or hate. Because the reality is, like what this movie really plays on, you don't know the truth and you're operating off of your ignorance. And some may say, well, they're just trying to bring race into it again. No, they're actually not trying to bring race. Well, in some sense they are bringing race into it, in another sense they're not. Because the The ones that are literally being discriminated against aren't the black people, aren't black people, because when you go to Emerald City, oh, there was another thing with Shiz, at that school, sure, they have several different races and cultures, but majority of the people in Shiz are white. I'm sorry, it is what it is. They're white. But when we get to Emerald City, there's a bunch of black folk in Emerald City. The richest, the most prosperous, the most famous city in the entirety of the whole of that verse are the black people live there. And so I'm like, oh, cool. So I'm not feeling offended. I like that. Okay, I respect that. But the ones being discriminated against are the animals. And there's so much religious undertone with that I can't wait to get into. I'm so excited for that. But that's really the main things that I wanted to point out, because I know everyone else on TikTok, I know everyone else on YouTube are already going to harp on the main things that everyone's going to talk about. I want to bring up something different. That's why I've talked about these points without bringing up all the traditional stuff that everyone else is going to talk about. And so, guys, thank y'all so very much for tuning in, and I look forward to giving you guys a religious perspective as well. Y'all have a blessed one. Peace.